This month, I'm preparing 28 more dinners for a family of 4 for under £150. But today, I will be trying to cook it in less than 6 hours, beating my previous challenge by doubling down on the recipes we really loved and trying to do it in even less time than before. So let's start the timer. I'm using the first hour to get the oven heated up and prepare all the vegetables, potatoes, opening the tins, and getting all of the things ready so I can essentially just pick them up off the worktop and drop them into the recipes as I need them. If you can group together an activity like cutting, chopping, preparing the vegetables, this helps you be way more time efficient for the rest of your batch cook, as everything is ready and you can just pick out what you need for each recipe that you're doing. This is a good reminder to make sure that you have all the things that you will need before you start a challenge like this. So in my case today, I'm doing quite a few dump bags. And last time I actually ran out of freezer bags half the way through. So I am all prepared this time and I've got everything that I need. I also really love these little glass containers, which will be perfect for one of the pasta sauces that I'm making. I'm going to roast a whole chicken to save myself a little bit of time. And I actually got this chicken on offer and it was really good value and a great way to make the most of it. I'm also putting some sweet potatoes in the oven, ready to soften up for a recipe I'm going to do later on. Now I'm going to move on to making a metric ton of mash. Last month we did not have enough and I'm making even more this time. I've cut and peeled over 6 kilograms of potatoes. So if that's not enough, I think we might have to take a long, hard look at ourselves and our mash consumption. They're going to get boiling now in my 2 big pans, ready to be mashed up later with some butter, milk and whole grain mustard. Now we're coming up to 45 minutes and it's time to brown off the veg and the mince for the slow cooker. So I'm actually using most of my pans for the potatoes. So I'm going to outsource this step to my Thermomix, which sadly broke down the last time I batch cooked. You of course don't need a Thermomix to do batch cooking, but today it's handy for a few shortcuts I'm making here and there. So in this meal, I have packed in lots of different vegetables like carrots and celery. I'm also using some grated parsnip, thanks to a recommendation on my last batch cook video. And the great thing about doing this bolognese is it can slow cook whilst you're doing everything else and makes a really great base sauce that you can use across lots of different meals. So in this case, I'm using it for a bolognese and a cottage pie, but you could add a bit of spice, turn it into a chili if you had some beans, or keep it just as a bolognese. There's lots of different things you could do with it. Now the first hour is behind us, my potatoes are parboiled and drained, so I have mashed them up and I'm keeping them portioned out ready for the next set of meals. And we're now going to move on to my favourite part of batch cooking, which is dump bags. This month, we're actually having 5 different dump bag meals. We're going to be having a veggie bolognese, honey soy chicken dump bag, satay chicken dump bag, which will be served with either rice or noodles, marry me chicken pasta, which is so tasty, and a tinned orzo dish, which is a little bit of an experiment and will be baked in the oven. I love dump bags because they're just so easy and quick to assemble, but they're also really delicious meals and just save you so much time if you're letting the slow cooker or the oven do the work for you. Last month, a few of you said it would be useful to see the list of the ingredients that I bought from the shop. So this time I am going to keep a running total going of ingredients and roughly how much it cost me. Now there is a big caveat here. We're catering for 2 adults and 2 small children, so the portion sizes match that. Feel free to adapt for your family, but recognise that might change the amount of ingredients you need or the cost. So let's start with the veggie bolognese dump bags. In here we've got some onions, carrots, celery, garlic and grated parsnip. This was such a good tip from my last video, so thank you for that. I'm finishing off with some tin tomatoes and some passata, and I have got a stock cube going in there. I have used a beef stock cube this time because that's the taste we like, but by all means you could use veggie. So that's all prepped and done, and now that will be frozen flat. Next, I'm going to move on to 2 super easy bags. First is the honey soy chicken, which is literally just chicken thighs, soy sauce, garlic, ginger, honey, and a little bit of oil. And then I will add a little bit of water to this once it's in the slow cooker. And I'm going to garnish that with some spring onion and serve with rice. Next up is satay chicken, which is another firm favourite here, using chicken thighs again and a sauce made up of peanut butter, soy sauce, curry paste, honey, garlic, and coconut milk. I've used my own homemade curry paste here, as I really do like making things like that might be a little bit more processed if you bought them in the shops, and making them myself. So I am going to be restocking some of those cupboard essentials like curry paste and vegetable stock, and I aim to package that into a video at some point to show you how I do it. This dump bag will also be slow cooked and will be served with rice. Next up is an absolute favourite of ours, which is Marry Me Chicken. And if you haven't tried this, where have you been? We lived off this during the renovation. It's so versatile. You could have it with pasta, or you could just have it with mash and some veg. And it's simply just chicken thighs, sun-dried tomatoes, onion, garlic, herbs, and stock. And I'll add the extra ingredients like cream cheese, a bit of chopped frozen spinach, and some parmesan once it has finished slow cooking. And it's quite handy that I'm adding those ingredients at the end, as when I did my food shop, they didn't actually have any frozen chopped spinach in Sainsbury's, which was not ideal. Finally, my last bag is a tinned fish and tomato orzo bake. Now, I keep seeing sardines popping up everywhere as a really nutritious ingredient, but I just could not find them in the shops. So we're doing this as a bit of a test, and I'm trying it with mackerel instead. And I've paired that with some onions, garlic, and seasoning in the dry orzo, which will then be combined with some water and baked in the oven on the day of cooking and finished off with some cheese. So let's do a quick time check. We're coming up to 2 hours in. I've just made 10 dump bags in less than 45 minutes. This is why I really like dump bags. In hardly any time at all, I've made 10 portions of food that will either be slow cooked or oven cooked. And we've got some great meals to look forward to this month. This represents nearly a third of the meals we're going to eat this month, and they were so fast to make. We really liked the dump bags that we had last month, and it just saved us so much time, which is why I've done more this time round. Someone actually did pick up on this in the last video, that we ended up with 4 ovens in our renovation, but I bet no one spotted this little detail, that one of the ovens is set to Australia time as a little bit of fun, as my brother lives in Sydney. Now I'm going to move on to the hob section, as I have a few different things that I intend to make that can all be done on the hob. And this whole stage is so much easier for me this month, as I've actually finally got round to buying new pans. I decided to go for these stainless steel pans from ProCook, as we wanted to move away from the coated non-stick ones. So I went for this bundle where I get 3 saucepans, and I'm really impressed by the weight of these saucepans. I've also got a frying pan. I went for the casserole with the lid because I make quite a lot of batch sauces. And then this stock pot for bigger things that I'm going to be boiling up. And actually, I'm really pleased with the selection that I've got here, because they're not too bulky to fit in the kitchen, but they cover a lot of different things that I will use them for. But the trick now for me is going to be learning how to cook with stainless steel so that I don't get food sticking to the pans, and how to properly care for them. So today I'm going to make a sweet potato curry, butternut squash and spinach pasta bake, a cheese sauce for macaroni cheese, and a base for a chicken and leek pie. If you can try and group the cooking into zones, it makes you way more time efficient when you're doing a challenge like this today. So first off, I'm going to start with the curry and the cheese sauce. So I chose to do this curry as it's a really good way to get some extra veggies in a format the kids like. I'm testing out a tip that someone told me, where you drop a little bit of water in the pan, and if it skirts around the base of the pan in a little ball shape, then you know the pan is hot enough. But I did learn the hard way, when you add the oil, you need to take the pan off the heat before you then add the other ingredients to help form that non-stick layer of fat so that things don't stick to the bottom of the pan. But I worked it out, and I've got this cooking down, and this will actually cook in the background whilst I make everything else, because there is quite a lot of liquid in this curry. This will ultimately be served with some dry fried halloumi on top and some rice. Now, the next thing I'm making is a cheese sauce, which is another really good one to batch cook, as I can take some for mac and cheese and use the rest for lasagna. I quite like to add a bit of mustard powder to mine to make it extra tangy. This doesn't have lots of ingredients, just like the curry. And whilst it cooks, I've actually blended up some butter beans and some butternut squash to add into the sauce to make it go a little bit further. So I can save 2 portions of mac and cheese and use the rest for the lasagna and keep it chilled until I'm ready to assemble it. Now, I will hold my hands up and admit that surely I'm not the only person that does this, but when I'm cooking at home, I just kind of chuck ingredients in by eye, and sometimes I end up with a little bit extra sauce, but it's fine with a recipe like this because you can use it in lots of different ways. Now, for the butternut squash, I had intended to use frozen butternut squash across all my recipes, but I had a little bit of a challenge that they ran out when I went to the shops. So I bought a whole butternut squash and I'm using that for the next recipe. So this is the pasta bake, the pie filling, and the pasta that will go into the pasta bakes. So the chicken pie is actually a Gusto recipe that we loved so much we just make ourselves. And it's a really handy tip if you don't know this already, that you can actually look up all of their recipes online. And generally they do tend to use quite simple ingredients, and they're great ones to replicate and adapt to your tastes. So here we've got some leeks, some garlic, some stock, a bit of cream cheese, Dijon mustard, flour and carrots going into the base sauce. The pasta bake is also a relatively budget-friendly meal, but is a bit of an experiment. And actually, I think there's a few things I would tweak if I was doing this next time to make it more time efficient. So this time I roasted up the butternut squash cubes, but actually I think if I was to do it again, I probably would just blitz them in the microwave and mash them up like I do with the mac and cheese, as that actually might make it better for the kids with them being hidden into the sauce. But the great thing about this recipe is it is quite versatile, and you can either have chunks of butternut squash or you could just blitz it up and blend it in, whatever suits you. We are having a little bit more pasta this month, as the kids absolutely love pasta, but I am trying to get them to be a bit more adventurous and actually consider having it with some sauce other than mac and cheese. So that's why we're doing a few more this month. And when you are doing pasta, if you're going to freeze the sauce for a pasta bake with the pasta in it, it's very important that you cook the pasta al dente, because the pasta does absorb some of the moisture of the sauce when you freeze it, and it can be quite mushy if you cook the pasta too much. I'm using the Thermomix to whiz up the tuna pasta bake sauce. You could do this in a pan, but I've just done it to save myself some time today. And this also uses mainly store cupboard ingredients, so it's pretty budget friendly too. The chicken has finished cooking and is ready to be shredded, and that will be combined with the sauce and then topped with the mash. And I'm really proud that I've assembled 6 meals here in hardly any time at all, and I've been quite time efficient in the way I've made the components for those meals. And when you are planning a batch cook like this, it's a good idea to have a look at what meals use these crossover ingredients, like mash in this case has been used for a few different meals, to save yourself time when you're assembling them all. So we're now 3 hours into the challenge, and I'm going to move on to the 2 final meals. The first is a super fast pesto. So as you might have guessed by now, I'm a big fan of putting butter beans in everything and anything that I can. And this pesto is great because it packs in so many nutrients. Peas, for example, are a really good source of fibre, but my kids don't really like them on their own. However, they can't tell that they're in this sauce. So in this pesto, I've blended up butter beans with some olive oil, and then I've added in spinach, basil, peas, and a bit of parmesan and some lemon juice, and whizzed it up. If you find that the sauce is a bit thick, you can always add a little bit more olive oil and lemon juice, but just keep tasting as you go to make sure that flavour suits what you like. And then we will simply have this with pasta and some cherry tomatoes, but you could serve this with salmon, for example, or some chicken, whichever you prefer. So after a quick clean up and a check on the cooling of the meals that I assembled earlier, I've got about half an hour left to prepare some bean burger patties, which we will have with salad, some chips and some brioche buns, which I actually already bought and put in the freezer. I find if you buy the sides ahead of time, it really reduces the need for top-up shops, and it saves us money from impulse spending. So as you may remember, I put the sweet potatoes in the oven to roast up and get really soft earlier on. So these patties are very fast to assemble. And they are a little bit of an experiment because this is the first time I've given this a go. They don't use many ingredients, so you essentially mix up your sweet potato with some beans, which you lightly mash, and then you stir in oats until you've reached a consistency that you want. So I didn't want mine too sticky, so I added a little bit of extra oats, and then you can add seasoning to your taste. I kept mine quite plain, but actually I think if I was catering only for adults, I probably would put a bit of extra spice in here next time. And then these are heated in the air fryer, and they are quite soft in consistency, so you want to be careful how you flip them to make sure that you keep them intact. But they tasted absolutely delicious, and we will definitely be having these again next month. So now we're at the 4.5 hour mark, and we're going to assemble the lasagna and the cottage pie, as the slow cooker did need to cook for about 4 to 4.5 hours on high to get that meal cooked to my liking. So I've simply bought 2 boxes of lasagna sheets, and I've saved some cheese sauce from earlier and kept it in the fridge so it would be cooler and easier to assemble. I also had a little bit of extra butternut squash mac and cheese sauce, and I thought actually a really fun way of using it would just be to alternate it with cheese sauce in this lasagna, just to add a little bit of extra nutrients and diversity of ingredients to that meal. So now that's assembled, I've got the rest of the bolognese, which I'm going to pop into these containers, and then I'm adding a little bit of frozen mixed vegetables, and I will top with the mash. And these will be ready for the freezer once they've cooled down. I did think about doing braised beef for this recipe, but actually the price of the meat was so much more expensive that we went for minced beef this time. So let's take a final time check. In 5 hours this time, thanks to a few extra pans and the Thermomix back in action, I've made 28 dinners for the month. The final cost of the ingredients, along with the things I need for serving, comes to £150 and 26 pence, with the caveat that that is based on portion sizes for our family of 4, 2 adults and 2 small children. The challenge is complete, and I'm really happy with how it's gone. Yes, I have made some more learnings along the way from some mistakes that I encountered, but overall we've got some really delicious meals to look forward to this month. Hopefully this has inspired you to do something similar for your family, and if you have any comments or suggestions, please do share below. Last month, quite a few of you asked to see the list of ingredients or recipes that support these meals. And so this time I'm doing things a little bit differently. I decided to put the recipes and the ingredient list up on the website for free, as I don't want to charge for that information, as I'd love to share my process with everybody that wants to watch it. But if there's one thing I would love in return, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. And be sure to leave a comment if you've liked the video. I love reading them, and I do make sure to reply to as many as I can.